Hey guys, I just have one question for you today. Do you read Sutter Kane? Hey guys, Kyle here, joined by my cat Spike. He'll probably be in and out. I can't close the door, he'll just claw at the carpet. Welcome to another episode of Why I Love Cinema. Today, the film selected is In the Mouth of Madness. Now, real quick, here's how the show works. I've been picking a movie every single episode. One that I feel either didn't get its due at the box office, had a low Rotten Tomatoes score, got a bunch of bad awards like Razzies or something like that, and like one that I personally love, and then trying to give you the reasons why I loved it. I figure there's no better film for this list. It's probably one of my top 10 favorite. I know it's one of my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. Probably very high on my favorite movies of all time. And that's In the Mouth of Madness from director John Carpenter from 1994. For those of you guys that have followed me for any amount of time, you'll probably know that my favorite horror film of all time is Halloween, the original. And I absolutely adore that film. But this is one where I think this is maybe actually John Carpenter's masterpiece. It's the film that I think examines and truly embodies a lot of what his kind of cinema was. It's a movie he couldn't have made back in the 70s, but definitely he was able to make it with his clout where it is today. The plot is pretty simple. John Trent, played by Sam Neill, is an insurance investigator who's been tasked with finding missing horror writer Sutter Kane, who's played by I always butcher the name, Jürgen Prochnow, and obtaining a manuscript for his last book, In the Mouth of Madness, but he learns the author's impact on his readers is much stronger than mere fascination. The film actually had just barely below a fresh score with 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. It also only made $8.9 million at the box office on a budget of $8 million, which, as I've said before, sounds like it at least turns some profit, but we forget that they don't include marketing or the theater take when really calculating in those items. So the theater can take anywhere between a third and a half of the overall gross. Plus, you've got usually, if it's an $8 million budget, it's usually a pretty considerable, somewhere in that $4 to $8 million range for how much money they actually spent to market it added on to that. So as you can see, the film did not make a profit. It lost a couple mil for him. So we're going to talk real quick about the reasons why I love In the Mouth of Madness, and I'm going to give you some fun facts before the episode's out as well. So reason number one why I love In the Mouth of Madness is Sam Neill as a leading man. We don't get a ton of Sam Neill leading films. He's most well known for Jurassic Park. Everybody knows Dr. Alan Grant, and he's got some movies that he's led, but really, other than Jurassic Park, he doesn't have one that really jumps to the mind. I actually thought he made a pretty solid Damien. He was actually Damien in the Omen 3 Final Conflict, which was the third Omen film. He played an adult Damien trying to get into politics. I thought he did a pretty good job of that. I've liked some of his other larger characters, like in Hunt for the Wilder People from Taika Waititi. He played a very grumpy Gus character and, heart of gold kind of a thing. I think he does a great job when he's given the chance to be a leading man, but he never really rose to the level that I think he deserved. And the way that he plays John Trent is very interesting here, because John Trent is not inherently a likable person. It's not a particularly well-liked protagonist. And I think, especially with the way he's introduced with us, we're introduced with a framing device. He's being brought into a insane asylum, and someone comes in and asks him, why are you here? What happened to you? And he has to tell his story, basically, that of what brought him to this place and why he doesn't believe he's crazy. And I think the way we get to introduce ourselves to him and then see him at the beginning of the story and kind of watch that character arc, he has an amazing character arc that really could not work with some other actors in the role, but I think Sam Neill, again, is able to capably showcase a dark side. And again, when we get Alan Grant in Jurassic Park, we see him as a fairly, he's kind of grumbly, but like he is a good person. He is a genuinely nice human being who really has a good heart. John Trent is not exactly that way, but he also maybe doesn't deserve what's about to happen to him. So we feel for him. partly because of Michael DeLuca's really strong screenplay, which is funny because Michael DeLuca is actually known for Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, which is just terrible. But it's important to know that he also wrote this one, and I think his screenplay here gives a lot of strong character to John Trent that's further embodied by Sam Neill. And John Carpenter, who worked with Sam Neill a couple of times, I know I always think of Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which we might have to talk about. I really enjoy that one. He's done some really strong work with John Carpenter as well. I think these two working together is a very strong duo. So that's reason number one. Sam Neill is a leading man. He should get more leading roles. Number two, reason why I love In the Mouth of Madness, Sutter Kane as the embodiment of H.P. Lovecraft and Stephen King. So, as I said earlier, talking about the plot of the film, Sutter Kane is a horror novelist who's we're looking for him the whole movie. Do you read Sutter Kane? Is a very popular line from the film. So, what I think is really great about Sutter Kane as a character is that we only really see him very sparingly in the film. But what we get is very striking, very powerful, and then we're aided by the way others perceive Sutter Kane. And there's a really wide berth of different interpretations of this author. But I know from reading into the film that he was kind of seen as a little bit of H.P. Lovecraft, a little bit of Stephen King. And you can definitely see those two influences in the film. Even looking at the book jackets for Sutter Kane's books, they have that Stephen King type, which I want to show you guys real quick, actually. So I have here just a random Stephen King off of my very large Stephen King shelf. Stephen King's It. Sutter Kane is written very similarly to that. The writing is very broken, very old. The horror at Hobbs End kind of, they've got that pulpiness to them that I think really made Stephen King what he was back in the 80s. And Sutter Kane's got that very visual style to him as well. He also churns out books like crazy, and his books are fanaticized. You might say, like, the readers of Sutter Kane's work are very akin to Stephen King's. We live and die by the sword. One of these times I'll have to show you guys a video of just my Stephen King bookshelf. It is a full bookshelf of just Stephen King books. He is my favorite horror writer. Like, I live and die by the sword of Stephen King. But then you look back at the H.P. Lovecraft thing too, where like Lovecraft's stories are so bizarre and so strange, but it's the way in which he creates these monsters, these mythos, that make H.P. Lovecraft perhaps the most prolifically stolen from author, especially in horror fiction, maybe ever. The idea of like the old ones and the gods above the earth, and tentacled creatures coming through from other dimensions and stuff. It's very cool, even though it's done in a way that's very disturbing. I've often said to people, like, no one wants to imagine like something horrible beneath the sheets, but if we have to be taken out as a race of beings by somebody, we might as well get taken out by tentacled creatures from another dimension. They're very just cool ideas and cool ways in which they're created. And so Sutter Kane utilizes a lot of this, like the old beings, the creature comforts, the insanity plea. I think Sutter Kane is just a great character, and given the little time we get him, he just really pops off the screen. So that's number two reason why I love In the Mouth of Madness. Number three, I feel like John Carpenter really captured the idea of going insane. And the really, like, as you watch the film, things don't always make sense the way that they're supposed to. They don't always fit together as cleanly as you want. And part of that, I'm sure, was intentional. Part of it maybe was mistake, but it's also a film that, because you're seeing it through the eyes of a man who may be going crazy, or may just feel like he's going crazy, or maybe perceive that he's going crazy, but you're along for the ride too, it kind of almost negates any of its own faults, just because you don't know if what you're seeing is actually real or not. And in a lot of ways, that's a really disturbing thing to live through. So, this is a film that definitely builds on turning the lights off, turning your phones off, and staring at the screen and really experiencing the ride, because it is a really powerful ride. So that's reason number three The Feeling of Going Crazy. Reason number 4 why I love In the Mouth of Madness, it asks questions about the nature of obsessive fandom, and it does it from the point of view of a man who has fans. John Carpenter, he in the 90s was probably facing a lot of people, doing that continued talk of horror films are bad and our kids shouldn't be watching them, and it's gonna boggle your minds. We weren't fully into that video games are the cause of all the violence in the world. We were still kind of with the horror film, and violent films create violent people, which is ridiculous. But this film asks questions about the nature of obsessive fandom, the people who would live and die by the sword of their favorite author, or the people that just follow blindly any person. We have a lot of people that are willing to accept anything that makes them feel better in today's society, and also people that are not willing, or that are willing to accept anything that vilifies their own enemies. That's kind of the nature of Sutter Kane, is that the people that are obsessive fans of his would do anything to get a hold of his next book. The people that and they also wanted to do away with anybody who's not a Sutter Kane fan, someone who disagrees with them. And it asks a lot of questions about what is the role of the creator in obsessive fandom? What's the role of the fan in obsessive fandom? It doesn't really dive in. It's more focused again on this narrative that's there, but it does posit those questions about are we responsible? Are you responsible for the nature of fandom being what it is? And right now we have such a toxic fandom in so many different realms of nerddom that it really it's more powerful on the surface because of what we're sitting in right now. Fandom is as big as it's ever been right now. So the film becomes all the more timely when you ask those questions about, who do we believe? Who do we follow blindly? Should we follow anyone blindly? It asks a lot of those important questions. So really, reason number 4 is that it asks questions about the nature of obsessive fandom. It's a smart film that looks at these elements. It could just be a thrill ride, and it is, but you can also watch it for those other elements as well. So that's reason number 4. Reason number 5, fairly simplistic reason, but I do just love this kind of stuff: creature design and world building. There are some really cool K&B effects in this film, from some of the different monsters and creatures we come across, but just in general, some of the ways that they build Sutter Kane's environment that we go to and that we get to, move along as we go through the story. At one point, John Trent, who's hunting for this man, looking for this manuscript, comes across a town that seems like it's right out of the novel that Sutter Kane's been writing. It seems like he's hit Hobbs End, which is a very famous location from Sutter Kane's work. And it's just so incredible to see the way that world is built, and then it kind of crumbles and is rebuilt, and all the introductions that he has with the creature design there, and some of the disturbing, just in general, sequences, again, because that's where it kind of gets into Stephen King, is that you have your small town, your New England town in a lot of ways, and the lady running the hotel may not be the kind old lady you think she is. That's kind of that Stephen King element too there. But the way in which the world of Hobbs End, and by nature of Hobbs End, the fictitious things around and inside the town, is really cool stuff. I love creature design in films, and this is one where the creature design is really top-notch. I absolutely adore the film. So those are my 5 reasons. 1, Sam Neill as a leading man. We deserve more of him. Sutter Kane as Lovecraft and Stephen King rolled into one. Very terrifying character. Number 3, the feeling of going crazy while you're watching the movie. Number 4, it asks questions about obsessive fandom and who is at fault, if anyone. Number 5, it's got terrific creature design and world building. Those are my 5 reasons why I love In the Mouth of Madness. So there you have it, folks. Now it's time. You know it. We're gonna go through and do 60 seconds of trivia. So stay with me here. You ready? All right, let's get going. 3, 2, 1. All right, Peter Jason, who plays Mr. Paul at the beginning of the film, has actually worked with John Carpenter 6 different times. 6 different times. Carpenter needed this, or he intended for this film to be the 3rd film in an apocalypse trilogy following The Thing and Prince of Darkness. All right, let's go to the next one. John Carpenter is actually now an avid video game player, if you didn't know. His son got him into the actual playing of it. He really likes titles in the Assassin's Creed and God of War series. Next thing on the list here, John Trent actually speaks to Paperboy, a little bit about an hour into the film. Do you know who that Paperboy is? Do you know who he is? It's actually Hayden Christensen, a future Anakin Skywalker right there. That boy is Hayden Christensen. Last thing I want to talk about here, Simon, the man looking for his child in Hobbs End, is actually Wilhelm von Hornburg, who plays Vigo the Carpathian in Ghostbusters 2. He doesn't actually voice Vigo, but he plays Vigo the Carpathian. He didn't voice Vigo. Max von Sydow, the late great Max von Sydow, actually voiced him, but Wilhelm von Hornburg is in the film, and he's also in Ghostbusters 2. So there you have it. We're going to get done a little bit quicker because I ran out of stuff to talk about. Okay. So there you have it, folks. Those are my 5 reasons why I love In the Mouth of Madness. If you've seen the film, have you not checked it out? Go ahead, if you have it readily available, check this film out. It is definitely worth your time. If you like horror films, if you like John Carpenter, if you like Stephen King, if you like H.P. Lovecraft, check out this movie. Next up on the list, if you haven't seen it, check it out. If you have seen it, let me know in the comments below what you think about the film. Do you think I'm nutty and crazy for actually enjoying this one? I mean, it didn't do very well at the box office. It doesn't have a great Rotten Tomatoes score. Let me know. Comment down below. If you like this video, give us a like. And if you want to see more of this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. It's pretty simple, pretty easy to do. Hey, you can even help support the channel. Did you know that? Click on down below. Check out the Patreon page that we have set up. There's a bunch of different tiers available, and you can actually help influence the different films that we will talk about on this channel during these shows. So go ahead and check out the Patreon. It's actually pretty inexpensive too, and you can help support the channel in any way possible. Is always great. If you can't support with money, we understand. Go ahead and click the share button. Post this on Twitter and post it on Facebook. Post it on your Instagram. I don't care where. That will help just kind of spread out the channel, give us more people who are interested in watching, and more people helps fuel the channel as well. So if you can't support monetarily, hey, just help us out by sharing the video. Super easy to do. All right, guys, we're going to be back soon, trust me, with Kyle and Nick on film. But until that time, I'm going to keep coming at you every single week with another film I love in cinema that maybe nobody else did. That's me, Kyle Goethe here. You can find all my different film reviews on goatfilmreviews.com. You can check out my YouTube channel on Goat Film Reviews. You can also go and find me at Almighty Goatman on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find me here at Kyle and Nick on Film's YouTube page, where every single week we're going to have something new for you. Nick Palatichuk also is a member of the Kyle and Nick on Film team. Please make sure to check out his graphic novel, The Greenway, which has volumes 1 and 2 out right now. Volume 3 is currently in the works. I'm seeing stuff about it every single day, which is very exciting. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the St. Paul Filmcast, go on to any of the places you get podcasts and check it out. We got a back catalog of amazing interviews with different local talent. Thank you guys for joining us today, and until next time, we'll see you later.